Hello, everyone, and welcome. Let's get this started. Seems quite a few people have joined already. My name is Øystein. I am Chief Product Officer with Highcharts, and I'm happy to welcome all of you to this webinar. I'm here with Stian, Product Manager for Grid and Dashboards, and we're here for a product launch today. We're going to talk about Grid Pro, which is our latest product, and I think this should be a good one. So the plan for today is that we are going to hear from Stian. He's going to take us through some of the features of Grid Pro, how it differs from Highcharts Grid Lite, and I believe you will attempt some more or less live coding or configuration, Stian, hopefully without issues, and in the process then demonstrate how to save time and quickly get to a professional and modern data grid with some pretty advanced functionality. So this should be interesting. I think it should be understandable for everyone. You don't have to be familiar with Highcharts or Highcharts Grid or even all that familiar with JavaScript really in order to follow along. So ask if anything is unclear, but this should be quite accessible. And speaking of asking questions, we will round it off with a Q&A session, so feel free to use that Q&A feature during the webinar. Ask any questions you may have. We'll try to get to them by the end of the session. And note that that is the Q&A feature, so it's not the chat. I believe that's turned off. And if there's anything that we didn't get to during the webinar, we'll send out an email after the recording, after the webinar with the recording and answering any additional questions that we didn't get to. Also, I wanted to mention that captions should be available during the webinar, and those are auto-generated, so we'll try to speak clearly and tone down our Norwegian accents. But captions will also be available then in the recording afterwards. Many of you are probably aware of Grid Lite, Highcharts Grid Lite, which we launched earlier this year. It's a free product from us. It's meant to help developers save time working with data grids. It integrates very well with our other products. It's lightweight, zero dependencies, very performance focused, accessibility focused, obviously fully themable. And now Grid Pro builds on that. So this is a paid product with more features. So if you found Grid Lite to be a little bit too basic for your use case, then this is the product for you. It is available right now as a standalone product, and it's also included if you have a Highcharts Dashboards license. So if you already have that, you have the rights to use it. And with that, I want to hand it over to you, Stian. So take it away and show us what it's all about.
Thank you, Øystein. As Øystein mentioned, I'm Stian. I'm the product manager of Highcharts Grid and Highcharts Dashboard. Focus today will be on Grid Pro, and I guess there are some differences, but I guess one of the main differences is that Grid Lite is basically for viewing and interacting with data, while one of the features of Grid Pro is editing the data in the grid. So I think this session will focus mainly on editing data and validating the input from the end users. So there are some stuff I want to show, some stuff I don't have the time to show. So perhaps we can follow up with more webinars as we move along. Also, Grid Pro it's quite new. It's just launched. So this is hopefully the start of our Grid Pro journey. We will add features along the way based on user demand. And but there are quite a lot of stuff you can do with it already. And if it's If it's not in there, we have events and methods, so you can start building stuff on top of it if you don't care to wait for us implementing it for you. So, okay, let me see if I can share my screen. I will share my Google Chrome. And I guess now you should see a JS fiddle. So we'll work in here. And okay, so this is basically on the right, you see the grid that we would build today, and we'll sort of add to it piece by piece, and I will explain as we move along what happens. So this is the finalized grid has some stuff. It has, for example, grouped columns that we can configure. It has, of course, sorting. It has some filtering that we can get back to. It has some styling based on values, so that you see that the non-checked rows are red and the checked ones are black, just to highlight that these are out of stock. And the grid is basically, it's a very, in this case, you can imagine it's used as a sort of a backend for a very, very simple online store. These guys like it very simple, so they have one phone and one type of bread. But for demo purposes, let's keep it simple. We also have some formatting of content. We have some action buttons where you can delete rows, and we have one button where you can add rows. Yeah. So let's just dive into it and build as we move along. And I think for the first step, I will basically do this and this. And this is basically what you need for Grid to start outputting and rendering data. We need, of course, some data, which is basically an object with key values, where the key is the row header. You see UID, UID stock, etc. And the value is an array of values that make out the column in the grid. And for the configuration itself, this is a very simple grid, and the only property you need is data table columns, and the grid will render like this. So then it's sortable. You can resize columns, and it's basically very basic. And down here, it's just for demo purposes. I'm using the exporting feature where I can basically export the grid as a CSV. We also have JSON exporting options, just so that we can follow along and see that the grid renders the actual data that we are modifying as we move along. And out by default, we have enabled keyboard navigation. So now I'm using just the arrow keys, and I enter to do the sorting, escaping, and yeah. So it's tab to move into the grid, and then you use arrows to navigate within the grid. So let's start building what we opened up with. So I will do the next step. It's a lot of copy pasting instead of me writing stuff along the way. And I will run this one. And now we see the only change is that I have these grouped columns. And to do that, you can use the header object in the configuration. And this is, you can nest this however deep you want, and it's basically an array with objects where you define the column ID, in this case stock, and here we want to reformat the name to make it more understandable and readable. So we give it the name of in stock, so that turns up here. And the next level, we basically just enters in a new format property, which makes out the top. We give it in the class name of HCG Center. This is a built-in class name. We always recommend using the built-in class names that ship with the product instead of doing your own. You can, but this if you use the built-in stuff, you are sure that nothing will break. So we center the text, and below there we have another array with columns, and in here we define the columns that we want to belong in that group and give them some more readable names. And we have a new grouping called pricing and sales with 3 new columns. And as you can see, this UID is not in this configuration, so it's not rendered in the grid either. So if you need to group or change the order of columns, you can use the header property to do that. So that's basically it, and we can move one step further to get a little bit closer to the end result. I will do this again, and I will run it. And basically one thing changed now. We, in addition to the header property, we also have a columns property, which is also an array. And inside this array, you can further configure individual columns in the grid. So basically here we want to configure the stock column and give it a width of 90. You can see that it's narrower than the rest. We also want to center the content. And within this cells property, we want to change the format from the Boolean true false to some nice check marks or crosses. And this is one way to format content. Some of you might recognize this kind of, what's it called? Always remember, not mustache, handlebars way of doing stuff. So this is something that is supported by Grid and also supported by Highcharts Core. So if you need very basic, simple formatting of content within cells, you can use the format property. If you need more advanced formatting, we also have a callback function that you can use to do more advanced logic inside the grid. But let's move along. Let's go to the next step. And I will do this again. And I will run. And now quite a lot of stuff happened. So let's look at the other columns now. Here we have the first one, the stock column that we configured. And the next one that we want some special treatment on is the price column. That's this one. And basically here we want to format it based on some value from some other column. So basically what this does is, if that the discount is 0 or non-existence, we will just return the price with a $sign and two decimals. If the discount exists or is higher than 0, we return the price, and I calculate the actual discount based on the value in the next column. So the value in parentheses is the discounted price. And this shows how you can format stuff in one column based on values from other columns. And you could also format this based on values in the column. So if some value exists in this column, you could format this cell however you like. The next one we want to look at is the discount column, this one. And this is basically, we use the shorter version of this with the templating. We basically just want to insert the percentage sign, and we can do it like this instead of using this more heavy formatter callback function. And if we move a little bit further, we want to do something with the trend column. And as you see in the data, the trend is an array of strings, and each string is a comma-separated string with some values in it, and are supposed to illustrate some sort of sales trend. These are maybe per week, and you can see here and see the trend. So this is one of our built-in cell renderers, where we have a cell renderer of type sparkline, and that inserts basically a line. So if I comment out this one and clicks run, this is the default. But in chart options, you can use actually the complete configuration that some of you know from core. So whatever you can do with Highcharts core, you can also do inside cells. So you can do pretty advanced sparklining in here, so this is it's just a stripped down, optimized version of the charts from core. So we can change it to area like we had, and we have, for example, column is also one option. And here we can configure the sparklines further, and I won't go into much detail, but just to show, for example, if you want to use the 3D functionality from core, you basically use the 3D API options from core and hit run, and you get this kind of 3D sparkline instead. You probably won't do that inside of a grid, but you can. But let's put it back the way it were to column, or let's use the area. So that's basically how you convert those comma-separated string values into a sparkline. And as you can see, these we have some these rows are red if the first column is false. And there are different ways you can do that. You can do it inside the configuration, where you can add and remove styles and class names to the cells and rows and columns. But in this particular case, where it's a very simple logic, it is either true or false, I choose to use just CSS. So we have data attributes on the cells that contains, for example, the ID of the column and the value of the column. So I can do this CSS trick to basically select every TD, select every TR that has a TD with these values, and then color the TDs like this. And this is evaluated on the fly. So as we change these values, the CSS will of course reflect that. One other thing is that you can see, if I go to the script again, I have added something called rendering theme. So you can write your own themes using CSS variables. There are quite a lot of CSS variables that you can use to style the overall theme of the grid. And you do your own theme, set the correct or the variables that you need, and any custom CSS selectors that you want to use. I think it's nice to have them within the theme here using nested CSS, so that they will only apply to this theme if you have multiple themes. So that is done using this one. And we want, in this case, we want my theme to build on the default theme. So you don't have to write everything from scratch. So you can build and nest themes however deep you want. You could have a base theme for all your grids on the page, and if you need some of them to stand out in a different way, you could add sub-themes to them. So I think now it kind of looks like the way we want it to look. And as you can see on the top, I forgot to tell you about column defaults, but we have columns that we use to configure the individual columns in the grid. And you have column defaults, and all of the properties within column defaults can also be used in columns. So you set the defaults for the entire grid in here, and then you can override them if needed in individual column. So here we enable filtering. So you can now see that we have the filtering icon up here, and you can basically, this is a string, so we have the normal string operators. This is a number, so we have the normal number operators, and etc. etc. And you can filter the columns. We also have enabled edit mode, and that means that you can now double click in the cells and they become editable. Or you can use keyboard navigation, hit enter, and it goes into edit mode, and you can hit enter again to confirm, and you can move along to the next one. So now we have enabled edit mode for all the columns in the grid, and you can see this one turns into a checkbox, and you can change them. This one for the sparkline is basically this comma separated list of IDs that you can change, hit enter, and it updates. So now the grid looks like the one that we looked at earlier, but let's take it one step further. I will do like this. I will update. I will run. So nothing much changed, but we can have a look at what happened behind the scenes. You can see that this stock column have now changed from the cross and check mark icons to actually a select box. Not a select box. What do you call it? I've forgotten what you call it.
Checkbox.
Checkbox. It's called a checkbox. Thank you. So let's have a look at the stock column. Here you can see that I input a new renderer. We looked at the sparkline renderer before. Now I have a renderer called type of checkbox. And as you can see, this renderer is not placed within the edit mode. It's placed on the level above. So it's rendered in your face. There is no need to double click, and you can change values on the fly without entering edit mode by double clicking or keyboard navigation and hitting enter. And that can be useful if you have, for example, this in stock column, if that is something that they update quite often, you might just want to expose the input element instead of requiring people to double click to enable it. And also, I have set edit mode to false. So if I actually double click the cell, nothing happens. You don't go into edit mode because I have it here. And if we move along to the SKU column, you can see that we have some validation rules. So if I try to edit a value, for example, in this one, and enter ELE002 and enter, I will get an error saying that value must be unique within this column. And that is because we have this string here. And this validation rules array can be a combination of strings and objects. So we have some out-of-the-box rules that you can use, such as unique, number, etc., etc. So if you only need basic validation, you can just use the strings. If you need to do something a little bit more custom, you can use an object, and you have the validate property, and basically you can do whatever in here. In this case, we just have a regex, and if this one returns false, the notification is shown instead. So basically, I have to change this to some unique value instead, and it will be okay. But this one is not for the unique value. This is for the format. So I can enter again and enter some other format, and this one will pop up. So it must be in the format of 3 letters and 3 digits. So I can do that again. Sorry. 1, 2, 3, and it's valid. And if we move along to, for example, the category column over here, in the dataset, you can see that the category column is basically just an array of categories. And in here, we have used in edit mode, inside edit mode. So this requires a double click for it to be activated. We have this cell renderer of type select. And here you also have the options for the select. So if I click inside this one, I will get this select box instead of, it's not possible to type in here, of course. And I can, of course, if I want to, I can take this. If this is a field, they continuously change. I can move the renderer property, and I can put it out here, and it will render like this instead. And then let's move along to the price column. It's this one. Here I showed you the formatting earlier, and that it uses the value from discount to calculate the value in the parentheses. So if you move along to discount, I have another validation rule, and this one says that if I get the category, so I get the name of the category from this column. Let me just update this so it gets back to, sorry, I will do this again, just to get back to where we were. like that. If I look at the discount column, inside this validate function, I get the value from the category, the one we looked at here, and I say that if category equals electronics, the value must be less or equal to 30. So if I up here click into this column and I put it to something above 30, it returns false and it outputs the notification below. And you can also see that if I put it in some correct value, for example, 27, you can see that the discounted price in the parentheses is also updated. And that is because I have used this event. We have a couple of events in here that you can attach to cell, rows, and columns. And this one, after edit, I basically use this method to update the rows. And that method updates the rows within the visible viewports of the grid. So that if you have some sort of complex formatting that goes across both rows and columns, they will update. So I can put this one to 50, maybe it's easier to see. And I will get this one. I tried, so let's put it at 20. And you can see that the discounted price is updated. And we haven't done anything fancy with the trend line yet, so that there is basically no validation in here as of yet. And we can move along, and I will do this. So I have now shown you how you can enable different renderers and different validations for the data. So that's fine if you just need to edit the data that's already there. But I also want to, I want to delete certain rows. So if I run this again, you can see that this delete button pops up here. So what I'm doing here is basically let's first of all look at the header configuration. I have now reintroduced the UID column that we didn't include up until now. And I say that the format for the header should be empty. So that's why there is no text up here. And so I want to reuse this UID. Consider this UID some sort of internal database, unique database ID or something that doesn't make any sense for the end user, but I want to reuse it instead of adding more columns for the buttons. So I want to reuse this column for other purposes. So I reintroduce that one, and if I go down here in cells format, I basically insert an HTML button. I give it a class of HCG button. That means that this button will follow the theming of other buttons in the grid. So for example, if you look at this one, you can see that the border and the hover style is the same as you have on the delete buttons. So that the styling stays consistent throughout. So I basically add a button, and then there is a new event called after render. And in the after render event, I select the button I just added, and I add an click event to it. And inside this function, on the click, I basically use a method on the data table class that is available on the grid that is called delete rows. So when I click the button, the row is deleted, and I have an alert. Let me explain this. The ID we send into this method is the internal ID of the row, the internal ID that DataGrid uses. So this is not the same ID as this UID that we spoke about earlier. The UID is actually the cell value. This is just an internal ID. So to delete the row, use the internal ID. And then you do update the rows so that the grid reflects the correct number of rows in the grid. So you see here that the value that we alert is actually the cell value, which is the number from the data source. And this is the internal ID of the row. So that's how you can, and in here you could of course add tons of more buttons if needed, where you could do use other events and perform other actions on the rows or whatnot. And also inside the UID column, you can see that I have disabled edit mode. We set this as default for the entire grid, but inside this one, I want to disable it. So double clicking inside this cell does nothing. I also wanted to disable sorting. So there is no sorting icon up here as you have here, because it makes no sense to sort on the same delete buttons. And I also disabled filtering because it doesn't make sense to filter on this either. So this is now a clean column without any more interactions than the actual delete button. So now we have edited the existing rows. We have the possibility to delete them. And if we export, you can see that the export reflects the data set that is now visible in the grid. But I would also like to add columns, add rows to the grid. So if I go to the next step, and I do like that, and like that, and I click run, I have a new button down here, which is called add row. And that is basically done by outside of the grid. In this case, I just want to place it below the grid. I make a new button. I append it to the button's ID that is it's in here, and I attach a function to the onClick event, and I have that function up here. And this basically, back to the data table, we looked at the delete row. This is set row, where what I send in is basically an object with any values that I would like to set, if any. And in this case, I would like to set the ID, the behind the scenes ID in this column. And I just use this helper function get next ID. This one gets all the values in the UID column, get the top one, and adds 1 to it. So if I add 2 rows and export, you can see that those are below, and it's empty, and but I have the UIDs that are incremented because I included them in here. But it could be empty. And just to show that we can also have a new function called add row to top. And if I now add a row, it's added to the top instead. And it's basically the same function, but I added two new parameters. And the first one is the index. So this one says add it to the first index. So I could, for example, say 3 for whatever reason. And if I now click add row, it comes in here. So this could be if I wanted to expand this with more buttons, add row, I would perhaps like to add it below or above the current row instead. So that's how you can do that. The final one is basically insert a new row. If this was false, it would overwrite the row at this index. So that's how you could you could update something on the fly by using setting this false, sending in some new values, and that row would be updated. So now I have a new row, and I can start entering some values. Pick and I can go into this one and add 1.3, and the sparkline will be rendered, and I can export it, and we see it up here. Now, this sparkline thing, where I need to enter a comma-separated list of values, could be prone to errors and mistyping. But instead of using a validator on this one, I would like to do a custom sparkline editor. So you can do your own inputs. If I do like this, and I do like this, and I'll run it again. And if I now double click the sparkline, I get this this pop-up with one input per value in the select in the string, and I can add new ones to expand it. That's perhaps a little bit too much. Save it, and it gets updated. And this is just one example of a custom renderer. And you can, if I scroll to the bottom, let me see. I have it, and this is where everything exploded. I have it here. You can see this, that we have a cell render registry where I can register custom cell renderers. So basically here I want one called sparkline editor, and I also pass in a function and that class, sorry. And this one just extends the built-in cell renderers, and inside this function, I do all the magic to render the stuff inside. So this is the majority of this code. I won't go into the details. The majority is the actual GUI that we see here. You can see it up here that we have a lot of document create elements, div and the input and the button. So the majority of this JavaScript is for the actual GUI you see, and the rest is very basic scaffolding to do your own custom stuff. And this one extends the pop-up class. So the pop-up you see here is basically the same we use for example, the filtering. So you can extend this one as well to extend the use case of that pop-up class. Yeah, but you could of course do your own. It could be a complete modal overlay with plenty of fields and maybe some connecting to some database or whatever. So it's possible to do whatever you want. Yeah. I feel that went a little bit fast, but there was lots to cover. But I think I've showcased how you can enable editing using different input types, change input types, do your own input types, how you can delete rows, add rows, etc., etc., etc. So I will stop sharing and see if there are any questions.
There are a few, actually.
Yeah.
Maybe we should start with the easiest one, which is great job, Stian.
Thank you. Thank you.
These examples are great. Where can I find them, or at least similar demos?
Yes, you can find at least you can find similar demo in the demo sections at highcharts.com/demo. There are quite a few grid demos in there. This particular demo, I hope I will make this available in the follow-up email. Hopefully, if not in that follow-up email, I will add it to the demo section quite soon, and we can, yeah.
Wonderful. Then there's a question, how does Grid Pro do with large matrix sets? For example, an upper triangle for a 350 by 350 correlation matrix representation. So this would be presumably then 350 rows, 350
Yeah.
columns.
Yeah. When it comes to rows, I didn't use that in this demo to keep it small and simple. We have row virtualization where we render only the visible rows plus a buffer above and below, and the rows are rendered as you scroll through. So and there's also demos for that where you can find an example with hundreds and thousands of rows, and the performance is basically not impacted because you only render the rows that are actually visible in the viewports. When it comes to columns, there is, as of today, no column virtualization, but it's definitely something we are looking into. But you can put in quite a lot of columns before the impact is the performance is impacted by it. I think the browsers are better at rendering columns than rows. So, but definitely also virtualization of columns is something that we are looking into. If that answered the question.
That's a good answer. I also just wanted to mention quickly, and let me just share the screen here, that Highcharts core in some cases with the heat map may be a good use case for this type of correlation matrix. So this is a very small one.
Yep.
And here you can definitely draw very large data sets without performance issues using the WebGL boost renderer. But it of course depends very much what you want out of your matrices. Is it possible to do nested rows?
Nested rows. As of today, it's possible. You can use events and methods to extend it to, but it's not something that we have out of the box. But again, this is the start, so it's definitely something that we have on the roadmap. Both nested rows and also sort of master detail rows where you can expand one row and show something completely different below, like some accordion functionality. So we are looking into both of those, but I can't promise when it will be ready.
Then we have a question, if Can I use an external form to add rows to the grid?
Yes, you can. I only showed you how you could actually use the cells within to edit stuff. But you can, based on, for example, based on the configuration, maybe I should share my screen again. Share. Based on the columns configuration, you could loop through this one and build a form outside of the grid based on the properties inside this one. And when you post that form or hit an submit button with an event to it, you could use this. Sorry, I've lost it. You could use this method to update the grid with the values from the form. So it's not something we have out of the box, but it's quite easy to do. Whether if you have existing forms that you already use or want to develop something on top of this. And we also have a demo to-do app in the demo section that shows how you can use an external form to enter and update grid data. Yes.
Excellent. Somebody's also asking about the sparkline performance. How do those sparklines perform with thousands of rows?
Well, as I mentioned, we have row virtualization. So basically only the sparklines that are viewable are rendered. So we don't render thousands of sparklines. In this case, if this had a scroll bar, we would render these, and as you scroll, we would render the next. So I think there is a demo for core where we have a couple of thousands of sparklines in there, and the performance is not it's basically not noticeable as you scroll through the grid. They render quite smoothly, depending, of course, on the complexity of the sparkline configuration. If you go crazy with some very advanced stuff, it will impact performance, but not noticeably in most cases.
Nice. Also sort of related, the renderers, the cell renderers, will you add more of those in the future to use out of the box?
Yes, most likely. What we at least have in the backlog is a collection of I've forgotten the word for it. Not sparklines, but indicators that will show some sort of icon if based on some value in the cell. So that's one we will definitely add. And also perhaps more input cell renderers, such as we have date picker. There are no dates in here, but we have date picker, but such as color picker and etc. etc. But it's quite easy to build your own. So, but if there are specific demands, we would love to hear about them. Yes.
Great. Then one question strategically, where do you think Grid Pro fits in the overall market relative to TanStack, Table, AG Grid, Wijmo Grid, etc.?
Yeah. I think as of today, there are of course some major players out there that have more functionality. But I think we want to make sure that people that are used to Highcharts core and have used that for some time can use our grid for most of their use cases. And we will definitely expand based on customer demand, functionality, etc. But it's not intended to compete with the larger, bigger, more feature complete products out there. But I think it's a nice fit if you have, you know, the most common need for data editing and data visualizations inside the grid, and already are using Highcharts core or consider using Highcharts core. I think it makes sense to consider Highcharts grid before moving on to something more advanced if that is needed.
Absolutely, and dependency weight, etc., is also a factor there. Sometimes you don't want to go too big. Last question for now, unless more questions pop in. What if I don't want that checkbox to update the data, but just select the row?
The checkbox in that first, yes, I'm sharing the screen. This one, I guess. In that case, the renderers that comes out of the box, these input renderers, will update the actual data set. So if you don't want that, I would basically do like we did with this delete button. I would use format and insert your own checkbox, add an event to it, like we showed in this. Let me find it. Add an event to the click, and then basically either just add a class name to the cell or add that ID to a list or an array, and you could do with that array what you want afterwards. Yeah. So I don't think it's not very complicated to do. But you would need to insert your own checkbox and not use the one that's built in.
Great. We are about out of time as well, I believe. So good timing for the last question there. For anyone who might think of questions later, you know where to find us. There's a Discord server. There are plenty of support channels, and we're always happy to answer, whether it's on social media or elsewhere. But thanks so much for joining us, and we'll send out the recording and some resources afterwards. Thanks for taking the time.
Thank you.